We're good. Let's see. Go. Let's do that. Did that help?
PD.
Hello, hello. Did that work?
Yep.
I got it. I know tech. Sweet.
Oh, now I can see our
Now we can
faces.
see our faces.
Yeah.
Our beautiful shiny faces. Success. That's right, Scarecrow. Success. I will figure it
There we
out. We're done.
go.
What's a content? Well, I don't know if anybody heard it, but short intro of what I did earlier. I'm Brad Drake V from the PDH Pod. To my upper left, looking at the screen, is Dave the Alkadron Vader from the PDH Pod, and to opposite him is Bfine of Sanctuary PDH and the tournament organizer of all the awesome cPDH Sanctuary PDH tournaments we've had lately, and all around excellent human being, fellas. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
It's delightful to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah,
I am.
Of course.
I'm excited to come out here and talk about combos with you. I wasn't sure I was going to get this invite after my outburst as a commentator. So
Outburst. That's
yeah,
hilarious.
I'm delighted that you have you still have enough faith in me to speak publicly
to put you in
on
front of
our
a
behalf.
microphone.
Yeah, and like to put me in front of a microphone in a way that sort of implicitly endorses what I have to say.
Right.
Like that.
People want to hear it.
That's yeah.
It's not me speaking.
That's the kind
It's
of
the people.
that's
That's how you know
I
you have
am
a real one.
That's right.
I'm for the people.
That's right. You should be. The people are awesome. Bobby, thanks for hopping on a Friday night.
Yeah, no, I'm glad. Always happy to chat about Pauper Commander. So, and data. Like, I love data.
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone loves data, but it's fun.
Data can be very good. Yeah, this is I don't know if it wasn't live yet, but this is just sort of a discussion I wanted to put together in light of it's one I've wanted to talk about for a while, actually, specifically about the combo archetype. I know we've done episodes on it in the PDH pod about building combo decks and talking about combo decks, and we've even touched on the competitive side of things. But this is one that I've been thinking about for a while as far as what is combo, what does it mean to the meta, where's its place in the meta, maybe some data to back that up, and sort of like maybe I'll learn something too, but as a non-combo player, what do you do when you're expecting so much heavy combo at an event or in your play group or at your LGS, that sort of thing? So I thought we could touch on that, all those topics, sort of briefly, maybe a little bit in depth. It doesn't have to be like an all-night discussion or anything like that, but I don't know
24
about
hours of combo talk.
24 combo. That's right. That's what we're going to be. The new 24-hour combo channel. Dave did not know that.
Yeah.
He's prepping right now.
Oh, I gotta check the watch. Gotta check the oven. Gotta check whether or not I have a counterspell in my hand, ready to go right now.
You should. They always have it. So I mean, you got to have it.
They always have it unless
they always
don't.
have it. Unless they don't. That's right.
Right? Like
now, you two have been obviously into PDH as a format, as players, as RC members, what have you, significantly longer than I have. Where combo's always been a thing, right? Like I'll just won't even
always.
get fancy with the question. It's just always been an archetype, a powerful archetype. It has nothing to do with like fire design and power creep and all this sort of crazy stuff.
I started playing a PDH in 2013,
Mhm.
and that was before Peregrine Drake got downshifted, and before we had a second Ghostly Flicker in the form of Displace. And even then, the first PDH deck I ever built, 2013, had an infinite combo in it. No lies.
Yeah, I remember when we were talking the last time I was on the pod, and I pulled up my Disciple of Deceit deck from 2013. It was a combo deck. Like, that was one of the first decks I was playing. So yeah,
Sure.
Like, it's just always been a thing.
Yeah. And what sort of drew you to that? Was it just like the accessibility of it, or was it just like, well, this seems fun and I could just blast people out all of a sudden?
That I'll let Out go first.
The deck that I had a combo in at the time, it wasn't a combo deck. It was just a deck that had a combo in it. It was a
Okay.
Gilder Baron deck,
Mhm.
and like 80% of the deck was just dedicated exclusively to like having creatures with a lot of counters on them
Mhm.
and doubling those counters.
Right.
And then I was like, actually, also, if I just put a Pentad Prism into the deck, then it goes infinite by itself. And like that was my combo, was just the card Pentad Prism.
Right.
And Gilder Baron with a mana with a tap outlet. And so like it was I wasn't like looking for the combo. It was just a combo that happened to be in the
Happened to
deck.
be in the deck. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about you, Bobby? I know
My
you've
deck.
played some other formats as well, like 60 card constructed. Were you always sort of like leaning towards combo, or is that just something you're comfortable with? Like, how did that come about?
I think it just depends. I played standard for a while, and when in standard I play a lot of control.
Hmm.
I remember playing Valakut in standard,
Sure,
not
yeah.
what Valakut is now anymore, but like that was like a control combo E deck. But yeah, I don't know. Like I like to be able to I like knowing I can win the game like out of nowhere sometimes. Like part of that is appealing because everyone's been in those games where you're dead and you're just not dead yet.
Yeah, you're just not
It's
officially out
gonna
of it.
happen, but yeah, like sometimes when you're playing that like combo, you have a chance. So insert you're saying there's a chance meme here,
Sure.
Mm,
but yeah,
Awesome. So it's
I
um,
nothing.
I
Oh,
didn't
go ahead.
I didn't start playing like dedicated combo decks until I had gotten into cPDH. Like my the quick version of me doing competitive
Hmm.
is honestly very short. I uh this was before Clay, before the tryhards, before Ryan were a part of this community at all. I was hanging out with Crash and Yalaron and Mentir a lot, and they were always hyping up the competitive side of things. And at the time, I was like, I bet playing with these people is awful. uh, I I'm gonna stay away from it. And then one day I was like, wait, no, I'm gonna troll them. I'm gonna ruin their
I'm
game.
gonna get
And so
them.
I deliberately built a bird horse deck that was designed to just sort of like slowly punish control combo decks and
Yep.
like prevent people from comboing and like kill them like uh sort of eventually.
Sure.
And like it turns out that playing with them is amazing, and they're just really awesome people that are fun and educational and like really good Magic players to hang out with.
Hmm.
And so then I started building more competitive decks so that I could play combo with them. And I do love it for many of the same reasons that Bobby mentioned. Just the it's a way to go from non-threatening to game over, like
In a heartbeat.
very abruptly.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you're playing fair magic, which is, what my boyfriend calls non-combo magic, if you're playing fair magic, you have to you
Hello,
have
it's
to
me.
go through all of those steps.
Right.
Like you have to, like if they have 30 life, you gotta hit them down from 30, and it's gonna take a while, and everyone sees it coming, and it's a whole process. Whereas with combo, it's just like you flip the lever and everyone dies,
Yeah.
and like
All the archetypes go from
it.
A to Z, but mid range polishes every letter along the way, where combo just sort of like skips over the middle part of the alphabet, just goes right to Z. Yeah.
I mean sort
Sure.
of. Sometimes it doesn't though. Like I've played plenty of decks that are a mid range deck, and then they also play combo. Like you kind of
Mhm.
talked about Gilder Baron, like that's kind of one of those. Like it's doing its thing, and like sometimes you find a combo, and you're like, oh neat, I win.
Yep.
Uh, cool.
Yep.
There
Yeah,
are
we've
some that are
talked about
like,
that with my OG deck, where I've kind of stopped playing it for the most part because I've never played a game with it that lasts under 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? And I kind of got tired of that. So I'm trying to build in like literally just one combo to fall back into to either end the game or become enough of a threat that people take me out, basically. And I think that's kind of what you were saying.
yeah, like there's different levels of like even within combo, there's like different like sub archetypes you could
Sure.
really get into. So, um, yeah, I mean, like I like one of my favorite decks of all time is Malira Pod from Modern. Like, and
Mhm.
that deck was a mid range like combat deck that like was largely a Gavany Township deck that also like did get to play like a busted tutor, repeatable tutor, and to find a combo eventually. But
Right.
um, yeah,
You
just
keep on you keep on describing cards, and I have no idea what any of like. I've heard the name Malira before in the story. Gavany, I think, is a place in Innistrad. I have no idea what any of these
Yes,
things
you
all
are
do.
right. So
correct.
it was persist combo. Does that help? Is that easy?
Oh, yeah, with first day of class. Okay, I got you.
Yep.
Okay, but Malira is first day of class. There you go.
Sure,
Now I know
I trust
too.
you.
I was thinking about this as we were sort of like discussing this stream, this episode, if you will, coming from my strictly 60 card Magic background, semi-competitive, but still a lot of brews, a lot of janky brews that didn't do very well. Anytime they printed a new combo piece, or they would print a combo directly into a set or whatever, a Horizon set, if you will, Chatterstorm, for example, those formats are extremely warped from like day zero. Before the cards are in hand, people see that there's a problem. There should be actions taken, if you will, on day zero before the card even gets to the client or to the LGS tables. Is that something you notice in a multiplayer format like PDH, where as soon as there's another combo piece, or as soon as someone identifies a combo commander, if you will, it's just everywhere. It's a problem, and everyone needs to deal with it. And it's sort of like you groan your way through it, sort of thing. Like it completely warps the format in a way. Like I haven't really been around long enough to notice. Like I know the combo commanders that are popular now, but I have not seen combo evolve from Dave's time in Gilder Baron all the way up till turn 3 wins with Malcolm. Like I don't really know like how we got from one to the other, basically. Like how did it evolve? I assume it wasn't just like bam, here's a new card and all of a sudden there's a new deck. Like I'm sure people brew these decks, people engineer these combo decks to perform a certain way, but it's kind of fascinating to me to learn the history of like how it became to be so fast, so involved, and such a high threat, if you will, in the metagame itself. I know there was a lot to what I just said, but Bobby, what do you think?
Yeah. So I think it depends. Like sometimes we see it. Like I think your comparison to 60 card, like 60 card, you see it so much faster because when there's more tournaments happening. Like
Sure.
60 card is that,
Fair.
and you're more likely to see those cards when you can run four of.
Yeah, multiples.
If we're talking like combo piece in the deck, the people are going to play them and want to build decks around them. But if they're like one of combo enablers that there's not a lot of redundancy for, it's not going to like make waves. I personally don't see it making tons of waves unless you have like just a ton of ways to tutor for it. When it's a command zone piece, I think we see the opposite, where like, oh yeah, I'm going to do combo everything. Abdel was like notorious before it was even like able to be acquired in paper.
Right. Exactly.
It didn't quite like take off and like become the like kind of boogeyman for a hot minute. But like it wasn't unknown. Like once it was printed and spoiled, people knew like, yep, this deck is gonna do that thing, and that thing is comboing. So
yeah, that's fair. It does make sense, I guess, when you do have things when it's just a you're sitting across the table from one opponent, and they've got multiples of one card in a smaller deck, then the chances of that game being warped or the format itself being warped are much higher. So that makes a lot of sense too. Now, how have you noticed? This is something we actually put in our little bullet points here. How have you noticed combo, or what do you think combo's place is in the meta itself? Like, because you have a lot of players that I don't enjoy playing combo, but I understand that it's part of the game itself. It's part of Magic itself. Like, it's just part of the game. It's something you can do. It's something players enjoy. It's a way to win. It's a way to build a deck. Yada yada yada. All those things. But what do you think its place in the actual cPDH or even just regular PDH meta is? Like, do you think that it is? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and I'm also gonna ask Dave
Sure.
his thoughts
Yeah.
too. But like so, I think there's one like a big difference between like tournament like cPDH stuff and then just like PDH as a whole, right? I think
Right.
when
Oh,
you
for
look
sure,
at the
for sure.
cPDH side of things, you're gonna get like the streamlined, focused combo stuff. I mean, you'll see like anything and everything in between, just like you would in normal PDH, but you're gonna see those more often. Is what you're gonna see in this kind of environment. So and I mean, it's a big part of it. Like when you compare like if you were to break archetypes down into like aggro combo, mid-range control, like just those four, combo more often than not is like the leading representative one of those. Data varies. We could talk about it. I know Clay is over here like cPDH that guy. Go look. You can go look at all the data there too.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah,
So
shout out to cPDH guide for sure.
Yeah. But combo is like a big part of the metagame. So it's you don't have to enjoy playing it. And I like there are certain combo decks I don't enjoy playing. That's just like everyone has their preferences.
Sure.
But it is definitely gonna like impact how games happen and warp how gameplay happens. And yeah, it's just something you need to know about. And like PDH as a whole, there's still combos that are not the streamlined ones, and you get more of those, and they're, the Gilder Barons. Not that I don't think Gilder Baron is a fine card, but like, yeah, there's like plenty of combos. Those like, some of my like favorite decks are like the Rube Goldberg. Like, oh, I got my 8-piece combo together, and somehow if I do this loop like 18 times, I get 1 damage on you, and I'm gonna keep doing that a lot. And those are fun too. Like I'd say it shows up less in like, the kind of open play, like casual or competitive, high power, whatever you want to, classify things as.
Sure.
But it still happens. Like it's more of like I'm not actively like looking for it in those. I feel like in my experience, and my experience may be very different from each of yours. So
Sure.
I think that I am mildly qualified to talk about the question, what is the place of combo in competitive meta?
Yep.
But I think that like adequately addressing that is going to involve going into the history of the meta, at least
That's fair.
a little bit.
Mhm.
I think that when I started playing, the meta was Crash, Yalaron, Mentir, and their friends. Piku, a couple other folks. Wyrax was in it for a while. And at the time, the conventional wisdom was combo is the best, most reliable, easiest way to kill 3 players at once. So like combo decks are the best decks, and you have to be you should, if you want to be playing the best decks, it should be a combo deck, and it should be a combo deck that can stop other people's combo decks. And as a result of this being the conventional wisdom, we had a tier list. We had Tatyovas, we had Malcolms. Well, we didn't have Malcolms at the time. We had Tatyovas, we had Weavers, we had Izzet Guild Mages,
Mhm.
and combo was basically the entire top tier of the competitive scene. And other people would kind of show up in the competitive channel, and they'd be like, "Hey, I really like I don't know, Circara as a commander. Do you think it's competitive viable?" And like the people that were answering those questions were imagining, like, okay, let's imagine a pod where I'm on Tatyova and my friend is on Izzet Guild Mage and my other friend is on Weavers, and a 4th person shows up with Circara.
Right.
Like, is that card going to meaningfully impact this game at all, or are we all just going to ignore it and like fight for the combo, and then one of us is going to win with combo? And like based on that sort of reasoning and that deduction, lots of the answers to those questions were, no, I don't think that's viable. I don't think you should play Circara. I
Right.
don't think you should play, Goblin Lackey aggro. I don't think that's going to be impactful in the competitive meta. And I think that that was a completely justified and accurate thing to say at the
Sure.
time.
Yeah.
A lot of people got really mad about that, and they were like, I think that this is a very poor way to run a community. They said, we want to have a community where when someone shows up and says, hey, do you think this is competitive viable? Like the answer is, yeah, do it, go for it,
Yeah.
try it, show me that it is viable.
Yep.
And like based on that kind of reasoning, we had there was this big sort of paradigm shift within the community where you didn't have pods anymore that was Tatyova Weaver's Guild Mage. It was, there was one of those decks and then 3 completely brand new experimental, like, Circara the Bold, Satyr Enchanter, and like, I don't know, Floodgate, just some random nonsense that some crazy person would play.
Nonsense. You hear that? Nonsense.
So like,
yeah,
so we would have these pods where like suddenly, instead of one experimental deck just getting pub stomped by 3 control combo decks, we now have 1 control combo deck getting gang beat by 3 fair decks.
Right.
And then like that was a huge shift. Like, that Tatyova hasn't shown up in a sanctuary event in a long time. Like people, like I still think it's one of the most powerful commanders in existence, but like it has this reputation, it gets gang beat. Like outside of a full pod of combo control decks, it's just not going to accomplish a lot. And so we have this shift towards aggro, and that kept going and it kept happening, and then gut happened.
Yeah.
And like
Gut
for a
happened
minute,
for sure. Yep.
gut happened like at everyone. For a minute, we had the cPDH guide resource that had like there was a white gut deck that had something like 20 games logged and like an over 50% win rate,
Yep, I
which
remember
is
that.
nuts.
Hmm.
And so like everyone kind of panicked. Uh, and like so in addition to this like gradual shift away from combo that happened with this, we also had this very abrupt shift in the last 6 months that was away from I need to run a lot of counter spells and like doom blades because someone's going to try to combo with Malcolm,
Right.
and it shifted away from that into more of like I need to run pestilence, crypt rats, Evankar's justice because someone's going to try and combo, or someone's going to try to combo with gut and 40 skeletons,
Right.
and like
And you'll see
me
that too
drawing
in
a
the
counter
comments.
spell.
Like people will post their deck in Discord and be like, before you ask any questions, the pestilence. I don't really like pestilence, but it's in there for gut. Like
Sure.
silver
Yeah.
bullet. Yeah.
Like you have these decks now where, if you're staring down four skeletons and you need to come up with an answer and you draw a counter spell, like that's not going to stop the four skeletons.
Sure.
The skeletons are going to kick your teeth in.
Uh huh.
So we had this. There was in the last 6 months we had this big shift towards gut, which didn't appear at all. No one was on gut in Sanctuary 4. Like gut showed up at RIW and like overwhelmingly just got curb stomped.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like rest in peace, gut. Like you had your moment and now you're gone. But like everyone's fear of gut has moved people away from instant speed interaction that would stop a combo, and it moved it more towards like how do you answer a whole board state
Right.
on turn 6, on turn 5. And like because of that, there was this without that aggressive anti-combo interaction thing happening, Gator very cleverly identified an exploitable weakness in the meta. He said, like, spot interactions down, like we're showing up to Sanctuary 4 with like greedy combo decks and no one's going to stop us.
Mm-hmm.
And he nailed it. No one stopped them.
Yep.
And so like now what we just saw last weekend was the pendulum swinging. Like Clay loves this metaphor. Sorry, Gator. I didn't know you were fifth. I remember the top four, and Gator and Gut was not among them. I apologize. It's been a while. But yeah, so Clay loves this metaphor of the pendulum swinging back and forth. I think last weekend we saw the pendulum at its, what's the fancy word for that? Apogee?
Yeah.
I think we saw the
believe so.
pendulum at its most
Extreme.
forgiving of turbo combos, greedy combos. And having done that, I think we're going to see the pendulum come back. I think that the next time people show up for tournaments, they're going to be, instead of thinking about gut, they're going to be thinking, what if Gator combos out on turn 3? What if Gator combos out before I get to untap with 2 lands?
Right.
Like, and they're going to be packing their decks with all like foil. I think I expect foil is going to come back hugely. I expect to see every single deck running Go for the Throat, Doomblade, Victim of Night. What's the other one? Cast Down.
Mm-hmm.
Cast Down even stop Malcolm. Like I'm expecting like this spot removal. Bobby calls this disruption. I'm stealing his thunder a little bit here. But I'm expecting that the Sanctuary 4 is just going to be over. That pendulum's got to come back the other way.
Yeah, and that's kind of where at least my mind was earlier when I was asking the question, because the same thing sort of happened in 60 card Pauper when they printed Chatterstorm. It was like turn 2 to 4, you had 40 squirrels on board and your opponent was just dead. Well, that word got out to the larger Magic community, and they thought, Pauper's cheap and you can kill people in 2 turns. I want to play that. And it just created this influx of people that wanted to play nothing but the most busted, most combo-y deck we had at the time. And I understand what you're saying too, Dave, where the metas evolve, the group think tanks will come up with a way to fight against the meta, and it'll slowly move back the other direction. That pendulum will start moving the other direction. But in the meantime, do you guys notice that movement in cPDH where outsiders that are like, oh, I've heard of PDH, seems kind of fun. What? You can win on turn 3? I'm doing that. Like, let's go do that. You know what I'm saying? Do you notice that as much?
I think there's some of that discourse. I mean, there's a lot of people who pop and are like, hey, new here, what's the best deck? Like, I feel like that's like the most like the number one question a newbie asks.
Sure.
And it's just
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
depending on who's online, they get a certain answer, right? Like, because everyone's going to disagree. Like, there's different tier lists. There's different, there's the different deck databases that have happened over time. Like, there's different tournament results. Like, I think trying to say there's a best deck is obviously flawed for a billion different reasons. But, like, yeah, I think that happens in a way. Like, when, I remember making the infographics for all the tournaments, and now I just remembered I haven't made the one for this tournament, so thanks me and brain. Like, the average turns, and this is part of the data we'll talk about in a little bit, like, they're below 10 in these tournament games. Like, games are not getting to turn 10, which, if you had said the same thing a year ago, would be like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, whatever, that's happening.
Right.
I believe you.
I would not have believed you.
That's fast.
Yeah. So
a year ago, we were still reeling from the Corkin playing 3-hour-long control festivals. With,
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that happens. I don't know if there's been like an influx of people because of that necessarily. I haven't noticed that, but it comes up early in conversations when people are asking those, like, hey, what are the best deck type situations. So.
And you're right too. I guess it has to do with those 60 card formats, particularly when they're online, whether it's Arena or MTGO or what have you. All of those results are published on Goldfish, and they're published on mtgtop8.com and all these other websites. So the results are more accessible to everybody. It's not like just us on Twitter or whatever screaming about PDH and tournaments and this and that. So I guess it's more accessible. It's more wildfire-ish when something crazy happens in formats like that.
Yeah. And there's just less variance in those kinds of games than you're going to get in 100-card singleton formats. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, we sort of talked about, and I do want to get into the data here shortly, but we did talk about, or Dave touched on it as far as like the meta sort of evolving back the other direction, more interaction, that sort of thing. And it happens in every format. If you watch it happen, whenever there's a best deck or whenever there's a top 2 or 3 types of decks, there's always going to be people fighting against it, trying to learn how to metagame against it, tech against it, sideboards, yada, yada, yada. One of the things that I have noticed, and one of the things that keeps me, I don't want to say keeps me, but one of the reasons I'm hesitant to play a lot of competitive PDH events is because I play a lot of either, like you mentioned, Bobby, like control mid-range decks or just straight up mid-range decks. And it's one of those things where I know that it's going to take 80 to 90 minutes per game for this mid-range deck to win, regardless of how powerful it is. So a lot of times I think that too leads people to a faster deck because they don't want to go from, okay, game's over to, the next game just started. And that's a lot of my problem with it, personally. And I think that's what leads a lot of people to combo itself as an archetype. Not that I'm saying mid-range isn't an option or control isn't an option, but I know me personally, that's why I sort of shy away from those combo or those archetypes in a competitive environment, is just the amount of time it takes for those decks to win, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that's been a huge topic, and that could be a whole nother thing.
Yeah,
that
and I'm in no way like I'm not at all advocating for like 2-hour rounds or anything like that. I'm just saying
Right. Paul and Scarecrow and I have been talking quite a bit about time and that impact on what people play, and at some point we will have an article out discussing our thoughts on it. And I think that's a big conversation in all this too. That again, it's really easy to dive into that and go down the rabbit hole there, but yeah, I mean, I think that's something that people are considering and why they're leaning towards, like, why people would lean towards combo. The other thing is, Dave touched on this. You're playing a 4-player game as opposed to a one-on-one game. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot easier to kill 3 people at the same time going infinite than to, like, have to do it via combat over a longer period of time.
Right, exactly.
It's not impossible. We see plenty of decks able to do it, but it's gonna have more variable. I think combo decks are easier to play than any of those decks because you don't have as many decisions and like as many concerns about threat assessment with who you're attacking, because damage matters so much more in those situations. Like, every damage matters. You're trying to end the game as quick as possible too. And so if you mess up once and like an attack is wasted, that could be the difference between winning and losing, like very quickly.
Yeah, besides like your Zada decks and your gut decks and that sort of thing, those games are decided in the red zone, if you will, on the battlefield through combat. They're not decided digging through your deck and picking up an infinite piece and casting it and killing everybody at once. So yeah, you're right. There are a lot of decisions to be made in those decks because every single point of damage is massive. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sweet. Good talk so far. What we got there? Scarecrow. Hey, Dave, do you want to edit an article? Yeah, heck yeah. We need more written content. I enjoy written Magic content. I need to get back into that. What do you think, Bobby? You want to talk a little bit of data?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. What do you got for us? Where do you want to start?
Let me share my screen. Yeah, so I guess what I did, I'll give the overview before I share my screen and go into all this. Start with everyone's favorite, a disclaimer. So when I did this is all so subjective. No one's going to have the same numbers. I know Puzzlebox released a video earlier talking about interaction numbers in the decks from this tournament. He and I talked about it. I talked to Ankylosaur about it. I've talked to you guys about what I did. Like, everyone will probably come to different numbers in some way, shape, or form.
Sure.
So to act like my numbers are the end-all, be-all, I'm not going to do that.
Right. Well, and I think a lot of that's, too, is just people's personal definition of what constitutes as removal, as interaction, as disruption, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, and so what I wanted to do, because, all in the context of, how we've seen the meta evolve over time and combo and how it's winning, how people are reacting to it, I wanted to look at interaction. I kept using interaction as the word, and I, after talking with David and Kilosaur, not Dave, Alkadron, we came to the conclusion that we should say disruption versus protection. And both of those are interaction, but they're different. So I'm mainly talking about disruption when I'm talking about this. Ways to interact with what your opponent is doing, as opposed to ways to protect what you are doing.
Right.
Because that's going to be what stops, the early wins if you're disrupting your opponent's attempt to win.
Right.
So what I did was I went and put together a list of all the decks from each of the Sanctuary tournaments that have happened. I broke down, okay, what is disruption in this deck, and what's disruption in a way that is less than 3 mana, and there are some weird cards that I could get into nitpicky explanations for why I did or didn't include specific cards.
Sure.
I'm not going to, but I could if everyone wants to at some point. But basically the idea is you want it to be early because the games are moving faster, and the cheaper it is, the more likely you are to be able to do more of it as in the mid to late game, because you can have multiple spells that are doing things.
Right.
That isn't to say that 4 and more expensive ways to interact are not worth playing, but just for the purpose of this exercise,
sure,
this is where I drew my lines. So, let me do my little screen share here. There we go.
Beautiful.
But yeah, so this is kind of just the chart that shows over these 3 different months of tournaments, how data changed, how disruption changed.
Okay.
Were you saying something there, Dave?
No, I was watching the stream and it looked like Brad hadn't clicked on the watch stream.
Yeah, there's a
the
decent lag. Yep.
Okay.
Delay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Carry on.
But yeah, so that the disclaimer is kind of the first point. The other thing, this is all just data based on numbers on paper. I know Gator mentioned this in the chat a little bit ago. There's so much more that goes into games. If games were all played on paper, we wouldn't have tournaments. We wouldn't need to brew decks. It'd be real simple.
Yep.
Who can calculator better? But that's not how it works.
Dave wins every time.
Yeah. Mulligans matter. Player knowledge and skill matters. Pod composition matters. There's a whole bunch of things that go into this that it would be I don't know, a waste of a person's time to try to get it all figured out, because I don't think it's possible. Maybe I'm wrong. Dave, maybe the the calculator we need to solve PDH. But
Just solve it.
Dave thinks. I think it's weird. I'm in a weird position here because I'm a professional published mathematician, but I think more than anyone else in the community, I'm the least enthusiastic about data because I recognize that there are so many moving parts and so much of it is so subjective.
right.
I don't. Yeah, I put very little faith in data, but
Right.
I still love reading about it. So please tell me about yours.
Yeah. So this all, all in context of trying to stop people early and often really is the idea. So what we've seen over time, so I classify disruption as removal, counterspell, and then like some miscellaneous stuff. Stuff like Suture Priests, which is stopping flicker combos from like winning the game.
Right.
Maybe not all combos, but it does stop some.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of see, so over time, decks on the whole, not differentiating based on archetype. So in May, the average number of those disruptive elements in the deck was a little over 16 cards. So, that's, you probably draw one in your opener and maybe two, in the first few turns. And then since then, August, it dropped a little bit down to just over 15. And then now in the most recent tournament, we were at 13 and a half. So over time, people have been playing less and less disruption.
Because gut
part of it
spooked everyone.
Part of it
really
could be
did.
because of gut. I mean, part of it is also like people, like, one thing we're not talking about in this, I mentioned the idea of protection. Combo decks get to rely on protection a lot more in ways that like aggro and mid range aren't. Like they just have so many more pieces they're worried about protecting that those protection elements don't pull the same weight that they do in like a combo deck. So combo gets to rely a little, like, lean on those a lot more than like a non-combo deck would, I would argue. And those are not being accounted for in this. But yeah, so like just on the whole, so from the first tournament in May to now, we've seen a 17% reduction in disruption spells being played. When you want
to that is non-trivial.
Right.
Right.
Like, that's a good chunk.
Yep.
That is a. I mean, if you think about, this is again going to be a gross oversimplification, but if you think about, the cards in a person's deck being inherently sort of like proactive or reactive, like the disruption pieces are the reactive pieces. Those are the ones where, someone's going to try to do a thing and you're going to try and stop them.
Yep.
From doing the thing.
Sure.
So if we're seeing a 17% disruption, that is a 17% shift of cards away from reactive to proactive. That to me suggests that decks are becoming a lot more aggressive and a lot more like the non-combo decks are becoming more aggressive about just like trying to kill people fast. That's going to be, like your Dargos and your Guts. Yeah, that's the other thing I gotta mention in this is Dargo. Like Dargo and Gut, I think just rocked the format to the core.
Sure.
And the other part of so like in your non-combo decks, we're seeing that shift away from reactive to proactive.
Mm-hmm.
And in combo decks also, I think we're seeing an even bigger shift. Because you said that the non-combo reduction was what?
Oh, we haven't gotten there yet, but but yeah, like there's a big difference there too. But
well, and like you were saying, it didn't just take 17% away from disruption. It added that much more to the aggressive side, to the proactive side. So it was almost like that gap sort of doubled almost, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. People are becoming more aggressive on both ends, like aggressively comboing and aggressively attacking.
Right.
Like,
right.
Yeah. It's.
Yeah. When it's attacking, aggressive feels like the right word. When it's comboing, like greedy feels like the right word.
Sure.
But you can argue it's greedy for both, I would say.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. I just think that, like, combo decks used to all be combo control. They used to be, here's my 30 pieces of interaction and my 6 pieces of combo and my 20 pieces of card draw, and then we'll just, like, I'm going to try to outlast everyone else. I'm going to try to be the third person who combos because everyone has enough interaction to stop the first 2 people who do it.
Right.
and I'm partially responsible for that as well. And like this move away from reactive to proactive means that the combos are getting greedier. Like Lotus Petal, Simian Spirit Guide, these are really greedy pieces. Like those are taking up a deck slot that could be a Logic Knot or
Yes, yeah, that's a very good point.
I think
or a Doomblade, and like they're we're just trying to combo faster.
Yep.
I think
Like that,
I think
that's a
that's
big
why
shift.
I like using aggro more the more we talk about it. Like they're trying to do it faster. I think I would maybe argue against greedy because, as we'll talk about in a second, combo decks are actually the more responsible decks on average in terms of running the things to stop other people and running the protection. So I don't know. It depends on how you want to, use the word greedy, but they're almost like better equipped to be handling themselves. Like if you just put combo players together, they're gonna keep each other in check. But yeah, I mean, like I can just point to the numbers; they're right there. Like there's a distinct difference between the amount of this disruption that combo players are running versus non-combo players. If we look back at May, there's a one piece on average difference per deck. We look now, and then in August it was crazy different. It was like 9 cards different.
Yeah.
And now we go to November and it's about 3 cards different. So combo decks are on the average just running more ways to stop opponents or disrupt opponents. Which is why I'm hesitant to use the word greedy because they're kind of being like the responsible ones. And I don't know if that's like an interesting thing to look at. I don't know. There's a lot you could chalk it up to. Part of it is protection, like the aggro decks. They're also kind of just trying to force their thing, right? So their disruption is going to come up here because their disruption is your life total. So they're more focused on the protection and those I'm thinking Dargos, where like everything is just keep Dargo alive. Gut is like, hey, I need to keep Gut alive and keep this inspiring leader in play. So yeah, I see it, and I think there's merit to it and like how you phrase it, but the overall just is just like people are doing their thing and they want to do it faster. Like
right,
is what it boils down to.
And like you said, the aggro players are trying to do the same exact thing. They're trying to do their thing as fast as possible.
Everyone's trying to do their thing, but more.
Mid-range,
and like this,
but more. Yep.
Mid-range is even doing it. Like the number of like pingers we have, like
oh my lord,
in red,
so
in
many.
black with Nightblade and Mirkwood bats, like they're becoming more aggressive mid-range decks that can just like burn through life totals faster too. Even though they're still mid-range decks, everyone's just trying to like, it's just a race.
Yeah.
We could look at this data, like this turn data, like we touched on it earlier, but like the average length of a game in May was 8.1 turns. It was 7.25 in the most recent tournament. Like games ending before turn 8. And I remember like not too long ago we were like, oh man, the average is down to like just below 10. We're now like almost 3 turns beyond that. Like games are just ending so much faster now. Which means you need to be prepared for those like people trying to win early and like have ways to do things about it early, or have your deck built in a way that is trying to end things early, or is at least prepared for that. Maybe it's not trying to be like, I'm gonna try to win on turn 6. Floodgate isn't trying to win on turn 6. I mean, I would love to. It would be cool, but it's not happening.
Right.
So it's more of just like the knowing that that's happening and not just being stone cold dead to it.
Yeah, Gator brings up a good point in the chat. He says, please recognize card velocity that is in those decks, being able to power through a deck to find and acquire the pieces that you need, basically. And that's a real thing. That's absolutely a real thing.
Yeah. Sure.
Yep.
I really like Bfine's use of the word responsible, because I think that, to me, that that gets to the heart of why my reaction to Saturday's finals was the aforementioned outburst, that why that was so dissatisfying to me. In my mind, I think of combo as the high risk, high reward option.
Oh, for
Like
sure.
the high
Yeah.
reward is there. If your combo, if you execute the combo, your reward is immediate game win. You just instantly murk everyone else and the game, and you're done. It's like that's the high reward. And in for me, in a fair world, that has to be associated with a high risk as well. And I think of that risk as you are putting a lot of cards towards one goal,
Hmm.
and someone can disrupt that with a counter spell, and you're getting like 2 for 1 or 3 for 1 by that.
Sure.
And I like that's there have to be people in the pod who are prepared to do that, because you got to know it's coming. And so I like this idea of being responsible, having some decks being the responsible deck. Those are the ones that are going to try and stop it. Like one of the games we commentated was with it was Ankylo on Satyr Enchanter.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ankylosaur.
Someone
Yeah.
someone kept on doing like crazy big threats, and the only one answering them was Ankylosaur
Was
with
Satyr Enchanter? Yep.
O-rings and 3 mana sorcery speed aura removal spells was like the best we could do. And the other players were like, great, the
Thank
player
you.
least equipped to handle this has solved the problem. I'm gonna go be greedy again. And I
Yep.
was just like, this is so
Yeah.
frustrating to watch. Like I need to see the combo deck get punished for that overreach. Sometimes I want to see it win. Like I want to see it fight through the counter spell and like come out on top. Like that's awesome.
Oh
But
yeah.
like I need to see the balance. I need to see it try for that thing and just get dumpstered sometimes. And like on all day Saturday, I watched the combo deck just get away with it
Just
over and over
dominate.
again.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like,
Just dominate.
when am I going to see someone like put an end to this? And it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember
I've
like,
always
So-
found that that's one of the more interesting things about watching, or playing combo, watching combo players, is just what Dave mentioned, that high risk, high reward. Like when combo decks win, it's awesome to see them win. Like you said, when they struggle through it and they fight through it and they've got the perfect cards in their hand and they're dodging and weaving, bobbing and weaving, if you will. And on the flip side, when they risk it all, risk it for the biscuit, as they say, and they fail spectacularly as well. And I've always found that very cool to watch as far as combo decks go. But
Yeah.
again, like you said, we didn't really get to see that other side of the coin in the last event. It just sort of like combo just dominated.
yeah, and I mean, I think like the ones we did see where there were like those fights over combo attempts, or when it was combo versus combo,
Sure.
like in some of the earlier rounds. Like I remember I remember round 4, like there was a ton of interaction. Like it was Malcolm, Blue Red Malcolm, Blue Black Val, Gretchen, like, and like there was a bunch of stuff happening in that one, and like a bunch of interaction happening.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, like as a spectator, the most satisfying games that I don't remember round 4. I was kind of zonked out. I was elsewhere for most of round 4. That's the one that Derek and Brad were commentating.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
like of the rounds that I watched and paid close attention to, the most satisfying for me to enjoy as a spectator and a commentator were the ones with Fridge. Because Fridge was playing a really interactive deck, and all of his games were super back and forth. Like
Yeah.
someone played a threat, Fridge answered the threat. Someone else rose up as the threat, Fridge answered the threat. Fridge became the threat, everyone answered Fridge. There was this really dynamic give and take. There was an interplay going on the whole time, and it was this really great like narrative to get to watch the struggle happen. And there was just none of that in the finals. It was just like, here's my combo piece. Like,
Yeah, those were, I think,
who's got the counter spell?
I think
No
one of the
one?
first games Derek and I
none of you have
commentated.
3 lands.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I
it
think
was just wild.
I think one of the first games we commentated, Fridge was playing, and that was, you're right. It was absolutely dynamic. It was interactive, and it was an interesting game to watch. You know what I mean? Like, because you knew everything that Fridge did, every little move he made with a card or with an attack step or with whatever was going to affect the table on some level, one way or the other. on different axes, if you will. And it was cool when, and then he introduced the monarchy, and that became a whole other thing too. And it was just like you said, I'm just kind of parroting what you said, but it was very dynamic. It was very interactive. They were really good games to watch. They're highly entertaining.
Yeah. And like Fridge, for example, had the most pieces of disruption of any deck in that tournament.
I believe it. I believe it.
So yeah, so like that's gonna happen. I know to the point of the finals, one other, like I already talked about, I think there are some mulligans, but seat order also played a huge role in that game specifically too. Like Gator getting to go first as like the the faster paced combo deck of the table is like also did wonders for him. Like it was really good for him. So you getting to be the first to untap and have your turn 3 before anyone else does, I mean that's
big.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah, that is big.
Yeah. There's another part of my vague sort of dissatisfaction with that was that a lot of pieces all came together to make that happen. Like you needed the Lotus Petal and the Spirit Guide in the opening hand, and you needed to be the first player to see that kind of like performance.
Yep.
And I spent 10 years playing Viashino Slaughtermaster with 4 pieces of turn 1 burst mana in the deck. And I've between the games I played and the gold fishing I've done, I've probably done like easily 150 hands, and I've never in my life seen the hand with 2 pieces of mana acceleration that lets me get him out and give him haste turn 1. Like I was digging for it.
Sure.
150, never seen it. Yeah. And like let alone like never seen it, while sitting at position 1 at the table, like
the stars were aligned for sure.
It was 1 in 10,000, and like that, it's a 1 in 10,000 thing that I dug for years and just never saw.
Yep.
Yeah. Sometimes you get to live the magical Christmas land, and
you do.
Yeah.
And it happened.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that game is the fastest one I've ever seen. So yeah, it definitely. I don't think I've ever drawn a hand that could do anything like that either. So.
No, the quickest I've ever been able to do anything is I can generally take out 1 player on turn 3 or 4 with Rayav, and that's it. Like that's the that's the most explosive I can get.
Yeah. But yeah, no, like it's interesting, and like I think one thing that like. That finals game is one thing because it was just like so fast, and like there's not even like a lot of time to interact for the people at that table, right? Like if you're not getting a third turn,
what are you gonna do?
Don't have a lot of time to
Half your lands
anyway,
are probably tapped anyway, like ETB tapped or whatever. So
right, and so I think that kind of gets back into like the okay, now I know what people can and are doing this. Like, how do I not die on turn 3 next time? Like,
right,
how
and
do
I wonder if there'll be.
Adapt?
I wonder if there will be overreactions. Like Dave was just saying, it's a 1 in 10,000 chance that that's going to happen. It's probably a 1 in 100,000 chance that it's going to happen again in the next event. But I wonder if there will be an overreaction in the meta, like, oh, I got to prepare for a turn 3. I can't have any tap land, ETB tap lands. I got to prepare for a turn 3 win because that might happen. You know what I'm saying? Or if do you think the community sort of understands, like, okay, that's a little explosive. I'm prepared to see combo, but it's probably more like turn 5, 6, 7 combo, not turn 3.
I think there'll be a big correction. Like, I don't know if it'll be like an overreaction or just like like I expect I know there's like the Common Cause tournament tomorrow. I mean, like people are gonna maybe play more like disruption than they were. Maybe they won't. I don't know, but I think we'll see a shift in decks in wanting to play more of that. How pronounced that change is, who knows? I have no idea. Like we can look. One thing I thought was really interesting from May to August. May was won by Gator on Abdel, and then August was won by Gator's daughter with Dargo Kedis.
Yeah,
like
beautiful.
There's a giant shift in like the amount of interaction being played from that first one to the second one. Like Combo played so much more disruption that second one because they're like, oh, Abdel just gets to like do its thing, and
right.
They're not like, they're like, okay, well, I don't want Abdel to do its thing. and then the non-combo decks just played a good chunk less, and then and you saw like Dargo Kedis, like I'm just gonna like kill everyone, and then if they don't deal with Dargo, you're dead. Like, and so we kind of saw both sides kind of shift in like the opposite directions. Like non-combo is gonna like I'm just gonna do my thing more. Combo's like I'm gonna make sure I'm stopping other people from doing their thing more. And then we kind of saw them both kind of come back to like somewhere in the middle this most recently. Most recent tournament. I think overall it's going to shift to people playing a little bit more. There's still going to be people playing like the kind of like turbo-y, like I'm going to try to do my thing as fast as possible, but they will probably be met with a little more early, some earlier obstacles.
Sure. Which is totally expected.
Yeah.
I've already decided I'm gonna play in Sanctuary 4.
I might be joining you. I love commentating, but
I'm gonna bring a deck with lots of snuff outs.
Ooh, okay. So you might get disqualified if
No,
your deck
I've already-
contains
I've already-
more than one snuff out.
I've already talked to Liam about it. It's cool.
see, we got to
We-
end
we
with
have
the
an
judge.
understanding.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
Yep, we know a guy.
I've talked to Bfine as well. Bfine's given me the thumbs up.
Yeah, Bfine seemed cool with it, so I don't know what
Yeah,
Bobby's
yeah,
talking
it's-
about, but Bfine's all right.
It's fine. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I want to see that. Like, I'm like you guys. Like, I like seeing those interactive games. As a combo player, I like winning in those. I love being the guy that
Sure.
overcomes
Yeah.
like everything, and like, I like having the fight for it. I like the easy wins too. Like, and I'm not gonna say no if like I go for it on like turn 4 or 5, and everyone's like, "Yep,
There it is.
all right." Like, yeah. Like,
I've had exactly one game like that in all the competitive games I played with all my variety of combo decks, which isn't a wide variety of combo decks. I've had one game where I just had a really bizarre hand, and I had the combo deployable on turn. I think it was my turn 5, but I had gone first, so everyone else just finished their turn 4. And I had no interaction in my hand to protect my combo. So my plan was to run out one of the combos to bait the interaction, let that combo die, and then immediately follow up with the other combo that was in my hand. But no one had interaction for the first one. So I just played both of them and won twice as hard. That's happened exactly. I've had exactly one competitive game that lasted less than 10 minutes.
Right.
And it was entertaining, but like not as entertaining as like a battle would have been.
Sure.
I think.
Yeah. The back and forth.
Even that in a way was like dissatisfying to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm much more interested in the experience than the win.
Sure. Yeah, that's totally
makes me
fair.
Honestly, like a bad competitive player and probably a bad competitive commentator. But yeah, I've made my peace with that. So now everyone else has to as well. And yeah, I'm not changing.
Well, you see, most sports broadcasts, they have a commentator and a color commentator. We just happen to have 3 color commentators, just me, you, and Derek. We're just
That's how it is.
that's how it is. All color, baby.
super colorful. But yeah, I mean, like, so I don't know. There's lots of numbers here. I don't want to number people to death.
Sure. Now, is all this stuff? I know you're sort of tweaking it, and you're looking at putting more stuff into it. Is this something that you eventually plan on making public, or is this just sort of like your own tracking purposes?
I was just tracking it. I may put it out somewhere. I don't know. Like,
Okay.
You can screenshot it here if you want. I'm happy to talk about it or send it to people. I don't
Sure.
know how much, because it's so subjective, right? Like,
Yeah.
You can argue with me over whether or not I should have included a card as disruption, and like,
I know
you can
this,
do that about every single card.
this
So,
particular
like,
type of data helps me as a player because a lot of times when I'm because I don't play combo a lot, I understand it, so I'm not really on the prowl for combo pieces or interactions that are silly and goofy and kill everybody at once. Like when I'm scouring deck lists, either for the next casual deck I'm going to build, or after a tournament, that sort of thing. I don't always pick up on the combo right away. Like I'll
Yeah.
completely miss that there's a combo in a deck unless I see the commander is a notorious combo-ish commander. I
Right.
may completely miss that there's a combo in the deck at all. So stuff like this definitely helps me as a player. But yeah, that's the only reason
Yeah.
I bring it up.
Yeah, and I think one thing, I kind of what I wanted to talk about, I think you want to talk about too, like knowing this, so we know like people are like playing less interaction, and maybe or disruption, and maybe we're gonna see more. Talking about like, okay, what disruption should we be running? Like, okay, what are like, I don't know if you want to like, we can touch on like, I have like 6 different like categories of what I think are like the typical combos you'll see.
Yeah, I think
And
that
there's
was actually on
overlap.
our little list of topics was how to sort of metagame against combo decks. Not
Yeah,
specifically, not like how do you metagame against Malcolm, how do you metagame against Tetiova, that sort of thing, but just sort of in
yeah,
general, like your deck. If you're going to enter a competitive tournament, or if your local play group or LGS is competitive at all, like you need to understand that combo is going to be there, and how are you supposed to build a deck to survive those sorts of things.
yeah. And I think the first thing is just knowing what is out there in terms of combo. Like,
No,
I don't want to
understanding what the
go.
commanders do took me a long time to sort of
Yeah,
like filter through, but once you get it, and you understand that, like, okay, this is how Malcolm, with whatever partner wins. This is how Tatiova wins. This is how Gut wins. Like understanding what they do and probably what's in their deck really, uh, obviously, really helps quite a bit.
yeah, and like I might I'll just like list the 6 in a second of like the different combo
Sure.
like lines. I won't go too far in depth in them, but like I think knowing how people are comboing is step 1, because then you know what pieces you have to worry about,
Mm-hmm.
and then finding the pieces that can handle multiple of those. Um, one of my favorite like flexible cards that's ever been printed common is Return to Nature, or yeah, Return to Nature.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Destroys an artifact, destroys an enchantment, exiles a card from a graveyard. That is dealing with almost every combo that's in PDH, like in that one card, if it needed to.
Yep. As
So
Sniff says, that's a juicer or
yeah,
banger. I can't remember what he said. It's one of those two. It's a banger or a
it's
juicer.
both. It's a juicy
I think he
banger.
says both of those things.
It's a juicy banger.
Yeah,
All right.
um, yeah, but like playing as many of those like cards that can hit multiple or address multiple things is gonna make it so you're not like having to like worry about drawing the wrong part of your deck at the wrong time. My one thing I always am worried about is like I don't want to play like the most narrow cards, because then you get punished for having them in your hand and not able to do anything.
Yeah, I mean,
And
how many games have you lost where the cards in your hand had been there since turn 3? Like that's
yeah,
just not a good feeling sometimes.
right. Like Dave talked about drawing an Arcane Denial when you're staring down 3, 4, or 6, 3
Skeletons.
skeletons. Like that
Whoops. Yeah.
feels pretty
Yeah,
bad.
it's not great. Not great.
But like a Prismatic Strands is pretty cool because it stops the skeleton damage, and it could stop Malcolm from comboing off. So like
Strands is good.
Strands
I
is quite good.
I haven't seen this guy's name around much lately, but like a year ago, there was a very popular figure in the competitive scene named King Great. King R8. I think his name was Ryan.
Inger, yeah,
Yeah, and he was very adamant that the best interaction, the best disruption in the format was always creature removal, because at the time every single combo ran through at least one creature. And so like the conventional wisdom of like 2 years ago suggested that counterspells were the best form of disruption because they could stop someone else's combo or protect yours. And he was like, no, 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 no. Like I'm not interested in protecting my stuff. I'm running Crypt Rats. I know where the Crypt Rats is going. I don't need to save it from anything.
Right.
I just want to stop combos, and the best way to stop combos is creature removal.
Sure.
and I think that's not far from the truth. Like, there's every combo in our format is like there's a creature involved along the way.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
that's just how
I
it
bring this
works.
up because like at the time I was like, that seems a little radical. And then like I've been thinking about that for like a year, and every time it comes up, I'm like, actually, he's pretty right.
You might be onto
Like
something there.
maybe that isn't radical at all. Maybe that's just like true.
Maybe it's just facts. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't think that's far from the truth. Like, so when you look at the combos that are like most frequently popping up, and there's, we talked about there'll just be other ones that are there, like that are maybe like commander specific, but like the big ones are freed from the real combos, where you're putting a freed from the real or some other effect that untaps a creature on a creature that can generate a bunch of mana, usually with like a land that's enchanted a bunch, and go infinite and just create an infinite mana that way. You got the Ghostly Flicker combo line, so flickering an Archaeomancer and a Peregrine Drake, or flickering an Abdel with just a bunch of mana rocks under it,
Right.
And an Archaeomancer is usually involved. Yeah, banishing knack combos, which we're seeing kind of a little bit more as of late, that are focused on putting a banishing knack or casting Retraction at Helix or banishing knack on something that untaps when you cast an artifact typically, and then generating like infinite ETB triggers there.
You can also knack combo with Peregrine Drake if you're really enthusiastic. But
generally speaking, I may or may not be playing some Pure Sight Marrows of late, and am very familiar with doing that too. So there's Tidal Bore combo. That one's not as big, but it is unique to Tadiova, but it is enough different. I thought it was worth considering. But it's similar to, it's like a hybrid of like the Flicker Freed in a way, and like it abuses the graveyard, but it's also untapping things. There's the general kind of like aristocraty type combo, the sacrificing creature stuff. So this can be anything from Teshar loops to Cormella loops to persist first day of class combos. Like they're all relying on sacrificing creatures in a way that can go infinite and loop some stuff. Almost always involving the graveyard, if not always involving the graveyard. And then there's the Malcolm like kind of dedicated pirate combos where you're turning a pinger into a different creature type pirate, and it is doing a ton of damage. So I'd say those are like the 6 big ones.
Sure.
I like how 5 of them were about commons that do the thing, and then the 6th one was just like, and also there's Malcolm.
And then there's Malcolm.
But yeah, I think like you hit the nail on the head, and one of the points I wanted to say was that there's a creature involved along the way in all of those, and so like playing creature removal is big. Like, I mean, Bolt is a hell of a card. Snuff Out's a really good card.
Snuff Out is good. It's good.
Historically, when someone plays a bird on turn 1, you bolt the bird.
Bolt the bird.
And like
bolt the archer. Bolt the flame breather.
Gator plays Malcolm on turn 1, like all I'm saying is like
he's flying. He's basically a bird. We should bolt the bird.
He's a bird. He's got wings. Look, I've seen the card.
Exactly.
Like you just bolt the bird. Hey, thunderclap the bird. Gator knows.
That's right.
I want Malcolm to be dead more than I want this mountain to be in play.
Yep.
Just start down a card, down a land, basically mulliganing 2 away, just to make the Malcolm player also be down early. But
thunderclapped me cheeks. You know what? I'm here for it.
I approve. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like knowing that those are the ways. Like, so there's creatures involved. Lots of times there's graveyards involved. There's usually like some of them have enchantments or artifacts involved. So like there's lots of different ways to attack different combos. So bounce spells are really good because and those are going to be like fairly unique to blue, but they can deal with any of those types of permanents and don't have to worry about being stranded. Awkwardly.
Huge shout out to Boomerang.
Yeah, for sure.
For its ability to not only just permanently kill gut skeletons, but also, I mean, Echoing Truth does a better job of permanently killing skeletons, but Boomerang permanently kills a gut skeleton. Also, Boomerang permanently kills whatever land auras are on the land you target with Boomerang. Like,
as a Gretchen player, you guys can leave your boomerangs at home. That's fine. Don't worry about it. It's no big deal.
Boomerang's good.
Just play your Into the Royals. It's fine. But But yeah, no, like the bounce spells are really good because they're kind of like this kind of like Return to Nature. They're just like able to hit a wide variety of things. And then counter spells are obviously they're catch-alls, right? I mean, I'm saying blue cards at the beginning. There's other things too, but like counter spells can counter everything. If you're playing like just generic counter spell, like deprive, like you can catch just about anything. Like counter spells are good for that. They're good like fallback catch-all. So they're good at stopping things. Graveyard hate. So stuff like Relic of Progenitus,
Sure.
Nile
Honored
Spellbomb,
Heirloom.
Tormod's
Yep.
Crypt,
Yep.
Honored Heirloom, Fairy Macabre. Like
Fairy Macabre, it's a huge game right there.
Fairy Macabre is disgusting.
Yeah.
And I have been blown out by that card way too much. But yeah, like
so what do you
in blue? I also really like Resculpt as a instant
Oh,
speed,
Resculpt is real
2
good.
mana,
Yeah.
Mercs creatures, Mercs artifacts.
Yeah, a lot of people, I don't want to say a lot of people, but I would say a fair amount of people don't use that card as defensively as they should.
Yeah. Like modal
Like
cards
I
are
see it
awesome.
more often as an aggressive move. Like my creature's got, my 1/1's got 5 counters on 5+1/+1 counters on it. I'm going to turn it into a whatever, unless I'm thinking of a different card.
Yeah, no, Resculpt. Yeah, Resculpt hits artifacts and creatures. Makes it 4/4.
Yeah, 4/4. Yep.
Yeah, like the cards that can hit multiple types of things are going to have just such higher value. Like a Braid is awesome. It can deal with a troublesome artifact or kill a creature. We already talked about Return to Nature. There's a white one that's like reinforced, like Break Ties, I think.
Break Ties, yeah.
Break Ties, yeah.
It's a Return to Nature that costs more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like has the added ability to put a +1/+1 counter on something, I think. So like there's looking at like the fact that Wizards is putting out more of these modal cards is cool because you get more flexible interaction. You get cards that are never dead, cards with cycling that you could always pitch for trade in for another card if you're not playing against the graveyard deck, like and you have the graveyard hate piece. Stuff like relics, like the ones that replace themselves, like Relic, Nile Spellbomb, like worst case they're like a slow cantrip, like
yeah.
So like there's a lot of these cards where it's not hard to play. They have minimal negative impact, even if like you're not up against the deck where you want them. And even then, like sometimes you can Relic and like just get like stop someone's cool value play from utilizing their graveyard, even if they're not comboing.
Sure. And Dave and I have talked about it too, but if you've got say Honored Heirloom in your deck and you end up sitting down to a casual pod, you don't have to activate it. You can just use it as a mana rock. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't have to like stop someone's game plan because they're trying to do what they're trying to do, But it's nice that added value is on there.
Right. So that's in terms of like building, it's knowing what the problems are, finding the cards that let you like answer as many of them as possible. And like sometimes once you have that, then you can like identify, okay, am I still just like really, really in a tough spot if like I am against like a graveyard combo like a Teshar or like a Tadiova? Like, do I need that extra like piece or two? Like, do I need to add in Tormod's Crypt too over my Relic and Honored Heirloom? Like, am I really worried about Gretchen? Do I just want to play more like Enchantment Hate or like a Cleansing Wildfire to destroy their land? Like,
yeah,
there's lots you can do. But part of it is just like having that, like, I think knowing what's coming at you and what you got to be prepared for.
Yeah. And I think there's a fine line too of, all right, I'm going to stock my deck full of interaction and disruption and removal and stack interaction and all this kind of good stuff. And the other side of it, well, I just filled my deck with that. Now it's a 90-minute deck. Now it's a 2-hour deck, like because it's just going to grind and grind and grind and grind and eventually win on turn 16, 17, 18, So I think that's it's a fine balancing act that I have not been able to figure out. Like my Minthara deck is extremely powerful after turn 9, after turn 10. That's when it usually does what the fun stuff, the powerful stuff.
And I mean part of that balance is just like playing, right? Like you don't know what does and doesn't work until you play it.
Sure. And I've done it too, where if I got time, sometimes I'll do it while I'm editing the show, even, or if I'm watching a stream down on my computer. Is like I'll take one of my paper decks that I'm trying to work on, that I'm trying to optimize or make better, and I will pull up um, a combo deck on Moxfield from a known builder. Like say I'll pull up Gator's Malcolm deck and I'll play test it on Moxfield, and I'll put it like on turn 2 or 3, and I'll start my deck in my hand, my paper deck, on like turn 1, and see where I'm at. Or I'll start them both, me turn 1, it turn 1, go, go, go. Like kind of a 1v1 situation, but just see what my deck looks like at various stages against that deck. Like, can my deck handle, with the cards in my hand and 1 or 2 lands on board, can I handle this Gretchen deck that's got 18 mana? You know what I mean? Like different scenarios, basically. Not playing a whole game till the end, not trying to kill myself, of 30 life or whatever, but just playing different scenarios. Like, okay, they're going to combo. They have this going on. What's in my hand? What can I do about it? And sort of see like what pieces might fit, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be a madman like Ankylosaur and play 4-player games by yourself using Moxfield, you can do that. Like,
sure,
that's how he prepped for RIW. He's like played a bunch of 4-man pods, just him.
Mm-hmm.
I think
I used to do that quite a bit with 60 card Pauper, but I've never done it with 4v4. Yeah,
and Kilo top 4 RIW, right?
Yeah. So
he was on Aranus?
Yep, Aranus
Yeah.
Streeter.
Mm-hmm.
And then he top 4'd Sanctuary with Satyr?
Yep.
Yeah.
Dude's got chops.
He's got it. Mm-hmm.
And Gretchen, I think the last one too.
Nice.
So yeah, the one other, like, the point you bring up, Brad, that I think is also nice is when you're doing that, you're playing the decks you're worried about. You also get to see what they're concerned about when they're drawing their hands and playing. Like,
oh yeah, mm-hmm.
There's something to be said from like knowing what a deck plays or whatever, but by like looking at it. But then when you play it, you know more. Like, and okay, this is the card that actually terrifies me. Everyone thinks this is what's good against me, but I'm actually really terrified of this other thing.
Yep.
That maybe people aren't talking about.
That was some of the best advice I got from 60 card Pauper players, from like the Brazilians, because they are huge. They're like some of the best Pauper players in the world. And they said, if you want to learn how to beat a deck, play that deck in a tournament, play that deck in a league, see how successful you are with that deck, and then you'll know how to beat it with any deck you pick up. And that's kind of true. There's some truth to that.
TLDR.
Mm-hmm.
Build a deck, play some games.
I like that theory quite a bit.
Play PDH.
Play some PDH, yeah.
Yeah.
Basically.
That's the if you've ignored us for the last 76 minutes and need one meaningful takeaway, build a deck, play some games.
Yeah, we say it every week. Build a deck, play some PDH.
Yeah.
So, but there are a million ways to build your deck. There are a million things you could be worried about. And it's hard. It's hard to, especially for someone that's never really like gotten into the competitive side or has been around the competitive side of the format for as long as you and Dave. It's hard to be like, PDH is cool. We play it at my shop. I think I'm going to hop in this competitive event. It's hard to know what to expect, and it's hard to just sort of like be prepared for that. But
yeah, and the other thing, like, there's no one right way to do it either. Like, that's the other thing. Like, it's easy. Like, everyone's gonna have their preferences. Decks are gonna have their game plans that do it different. Like, a Dargo Kedis deck is not going to run the same amount of disruption as a Malcolm Breaches deck. Like, those are decks doing different things and worried about different things.
The disruption is the player removal.
Yeah. So luckily you get a giant piece of that in the command zone if you're a Dargo player. So that counts for like a few pieces in the deck if you want to convert. But
yeah, I did the math.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's like, I know, like we talked about flaws and, data and whatnot, but it's interesting seeing these like kind of trends kind of happen over time and these reactions to things. And,
it's going to be super interesting to see what happens at Chris's event tomorrow and what happens at Sanctuary 4. It's going to be super interesting. Yeah. The next two will sort of, I don't want to say like dictate the upcoming meta, but it's going to see, like Dave talked about an hour ago, it's going to be interesting to see if there are any shifts, if there are any deck design shifts or play style shifts in the next upcoming events. Yeah, pretty excited.
I think the pendulum's coming back. I think it has to.
Yeah, I think it does too. Yep.
I also think so.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this was a fantastic conversation. I'm glad we got to do this. This was something I wanted to talk about for a while.
Yeah, it's
So
fun. I always want to talk to you. Whenever you guys want to talk to me, I'm happy to talk
yeah,
to
and
you.
if if Bobby or anybody in the chat or whatever, if you think of a topic that you'd like to hear us yammer on about for 80 minutes or so, let us know. We'll set up another one of these. It's not something I'd planned on doing regularly, but I'm not opposed to doing them every now and then. Not opposed to it at all. So what do you think, Bobby? Final thoughts on combo? Is it good or bad for the format? Do you love it? Because you
I
are known to play some combo decks.
I like combo. I have been known to dabble in it a little bit. I like that it fills a lot of, like, it can be fast, it can be slow in control, it can be in the middle.
Mhm.
Depending on what deck you're playing, you can be aggressive combo, you can be a control combo. Puzzle calls Gretchen mid range combo. Like, you can have, yeah, you can
He,
take
I
take
think
that
he
up
just
with
made that
him.
up.
Take that up with him.
I will.
But yeah, I don't. I think it's good for the format. It warps games, but so does like a Dargo. So like that's just part of playing
Sure.
Magic, right?
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, I'm whenever I play, I typically lean towards playing combos, but that doesn't mean that's the only way to win. Like, plenty
Sure.
of people have shown that that's not the case. So
Mhm. What do you think, Dave?
yeah.
Did we convince you to be a full-time combo player, or what's going on there?
No. I mean, I'm
No.
not gonna take apart my combo decks, but I'm not gonna bring them to tournaments either. Uh,
That's fair.
I I don't think combo's bad for the format. I think that it has its place. I think that I I think that watching the pendulum swing sort of back and forth with the combo thing that's been happening over the last few years has been really fascinating.
It has been.
And I'm looking forward to see where it swings in the future. And I'm gonna try and nudge it. Like
Sure.
I'm
Do our part. Yeah.
I'm gonna be that asshole who shows up to Sanctuary 4 with 30 pieces of interaction in his deck, being
Uh-huh.
like, I wish someone would try it. Like, I'll be that guy.
Be like, how many
I'm
games did you win, Dave? 0, but I killed every Malcolm I saw.
right. Like, how many games did I make other people lose? Like, that's like right. Like, that's fine.
Bingo.
I'll
Bingo.
I'll I'll nudge the pendulum. But
Yep.
yeah, no, I think it's I I don't do that because I want combo to stop existing in the format.
Mhm.
I think it's good for the format. I think it's healthy. I do that because, like, sometimes I just really want to see the combo player get punished. And like, if I'm
Yeah.
the guy that's got to punish him, like,
Absolutely.
sign me up. I'll do it.
Yeah.
And as the combo player, you just gotta know people like Dave exist.
Yeah.
and be
You got to
ready
know
for
people
that.
are gunning for you, even if
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
not. You gotta think they are. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one way, or that's one facet of playing combo that I'm not really good at, is just like pedal to the metal. Dave's analogy or metaphor of cinder block on the gas pedal, throw the steering wheel out the window. Like, I'm not good at just like, everyone's out to get me, so I need to combo as fast as possible. Like, I'm just not built for that kind of play. So,
Yeah.
but it's
There's
fun
a whole
though.
lot that goes into that.
Yeah, there's a
Politics, other people being an issue, all that fun stuff.
yeah, for sure. But I'm definitely with you guys. I don't think it's terrible for the format, and I mean, we don't know what the future holds for what cards we're going to get from WotC, but I don't see it becoming like a disastrous archetype that ruins the format or anything like that.
No.
So,
Nah.
No, we're pretty far from that.
yeah, for sure. And sometimes it's fun to play against combo. It's fun to watch combo. It's
Yeah.
fun to watch this pendulum. But yeah, I think if
Yeah.
apogee is the correct word, we're probably at its highest apogee or most apogee, whatever the word you put there is. And it's got to come back down, right? Like, it can't sustain that
I think
height forever.
I think that is the case.
So that's what
I'm
it
gonna-
feels like
hold
anyway.
on. Let me look up Apogee.
And it's nice being. Granted, when we do the commentating, we don't get the audio from the games, which is fine. But it's nice to be able to see. If you're playing in that event, you'd see a handful of different decks, or you'd see Gator twice or Fridge twice or whatever the case may be. But when you're commentating, like, you literally get to watch every deck of the event win or lose in every possible way. And I think that's really helpful for the format. I think you, Bobby, streaming these events with commentators, regardless of who they are, I think is very helpful for the format as well, because a lot of people will watch and they'll be like, why did they do that? Because sometimes you'll watch an event or a tournament or just a game and there's no commentary, there's no narrative, there's no nothing, and you're like, well, I don't even know what card that is, so I wouldn't know why he began to play that one. So it's nice having like the commentators sort of there on the fans' perspective, on the fan side of things.
One thing I like, and whether or not you guys realize this, I do sometimes wish like the commentators could hear the players. Maybe not everyone, because who knows what unfiltered nonsense is being said.
Right.
But part of like the cool part of that is when no one knows what's going on, you guys, like, everyone starts talking through how it impacts everything. I think that is like some of my favorite parts of the commentary to listen to.
Sure.
When
yeah.
like combat is happening, we don't know who got attacked, and you're talking through like why or who it should be and like the reasoning, and like
Yeah, sometimes it comes down to, his life change or his life score changed, so it must have been him.
But like the reasoning why they should attack, like I think that's something. And like I know lots of, I like it as someone viewing it, and I know even the players, like I've talked to a handful of people who go back and watch and they're like, oh yeah, like I didn't even think about that when I made X decision, or like, oh man, I really wish I had thought about that when I made this other decision. And like, yeah, I think, they were right, and I just hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a few times where, it was Derek and I in the booth, and we'd be like, all right, now, Fridge is going to go to combat. He's going to probably, he's going to swing at Bobby here. Oh, wait, no, he's swinging at Dave. Like, what? It even surprised us, because like the natural line of thinking was for him to take out Bobby for whatever reason, but for whatever reason he decided to, he attacked the other direction, and stuff like that's pretty interesting, I think, even on the commentary side. So, and I know a lot of players, like almost literally the day after your events that we commentate, they'll mention us in Discord or on Twitter, like, hey, I went back and watched my games, I listened to the commentary, you guys pointed out some cool stuff, blah 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 blah. So I feel like not only the watchers of the stream, but I think the people that play in these events are really getting a lot out of that as well. So
yeah,
it's very cool thing you got going there.
Well, I have to thank you guys a lot for it too, because I couldn't, as evidenced by the first one, I can't do it by myself. So that's why
you do a lot by yourself.
I was very fortunate to have a Dave jump in on the first one.
Yeah.
Very last minute.
Yeah, very last minute.
I was very fortunate to have fallen into that. That was
gotten trapped. Yep.
It was awesome.
All right. Well, I
don't know what interior alligator crocodile means, but I support that. Sorry, Brad.
No, I was just going to say, I think we've devolved into just patting ourselves on the back here. So I think we're going to wrap it up. I did the kind of closing questions earlier. We all feel fine about combo. We don't want it to go anywhere. I'm not on the RC, but I don't believe there's any talks of banning whatever. So if anyone's worried about that, I don't think you should be. So yeah, combo good, combo fun, combo strong. Just understand that it's probably going to be there. And that. One more thing, too, I meant to mention this earlier, is that's important to understand what decks do, especially when you're someone that gets into a lot of pickup games on the Discord or what have you. Like, because you may not know 2 out of the other 3 people, or 3 out of the other, you may not know the rest of the table. So just understanding, like, if I get into a pod with Gator, I know he's going to be generally hyper aggressive or hyper combo, and that's fine. That's what he plays. I know that's what Gator plays. But like if I just hop into a game with someone off the home base, I don't know what this random Discord user plays. I don't know what kind of decks to expect. So understanding, like, when they finally reveal their commander, I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I understand what may be coming, yada yada yada. So that's where that helps quite a bit.
Alk's a wild card. You have no idea
Alk is very much a wild card. Even when he has a commander, it's not going to play the way you think it plays. And I love it. So. But awesome. I just want a big thanks to everybody for hanging out, chatting with us. This should just stay permanently on YouTube if you want to go back and listen to our words of wisdom, all that good stuff. But I think we're going to get on out of here. Bobby, once again, I appreciate you taking your Friday night and hanging out with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me as always.
Let us know as soon as you get Sanctuary 4 scheduled. Are you playing in the event tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay, awesome.
I'm very excited for it.
Yeah.
No idea what I'm playing, and I have to submit a deck in the next, 3.5 hours. So
perfect. I think you'll figure it out. So
I'll have it. Yeah, something.
All right, Dave. I just talked to you the other day, but once again, it's always a pleasure chatting with you, chatting PDH with you. Appreciate you hanging out.
It's been a delight as always. Thanks for inviting me to this. I had a great time.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to the next one whenever we figure out some other archetype to rail on for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else out there in the chat, have a good night, and we're going to sign out. So, peace.
Wait, let me say
Oh,
it. Let me
yep.
say it. Build a deck. Play some games.
We'll see you next week, maybe. Peace.
Probably something.